From the pages of MikeHuckabee.com, where you can read my daily columns and have them delivered right to your email inbox. And it's all completely free. All you got to do is sign up. That's how you get my newsletter. Well, here's a look back on some law and disorder news of the week. First up, a plot twist in the ongoing saga of General Michael Flynn after the Department of Justice dropped its case against the 33-year veteran, citing the FBI's complete lack of investigative basis for going after him in the first place. General Flynn's super lawyer, Sidney Powell, filed an emergency writ to the D.C. Court of Appeals to remove Judge Emmett Sullivan from the case. Powell argues that it's, quote, clear and indisputable, end quote, that Sullivan overstepped his powers in refusing to accept the DOJ's withdrawal of charges, and in bringing in an openly partisan second judge to try and drag out the case that the prosecution has already dropped seems ridiculous. So to recap, Michael Flynn's nightmare continues, while Attorney General Bill Barr says he doesn't expect charges to be brought against former President Obama and Vice President Joe Biden, who were well aware of the baseless investigation and personally signed off on unmasking request. Only in the swamp. Meanwhile, the forgetful former vice president and candidate for president or Senate or dog catcher or whatever Biden thinks he's running for this week, he's facing allegations of criminality. Oh, not in the U.S. He's been named as an alleged perpetrator in a Ukrainian court. The charge, interfering in the work of an official of a law enforcement agency. And why is this story gaining mainstream media attention now? Maybe because top Democrats know Biden simply isn't functioning well enough to make it across the finish line, and that to survive the November election, they might have to stop protecting him and let this scandal and his own incoherence take him out. Oh, but don't worry. They've had an understudy waiting in the wings all along. Well, Keith's got some fun questions for me to answer right after you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell below. And if you're enjoying this video, and of course you are, consider leaving a like and a comment. Now let's take a look at some of your questions and comments this week from our My 2 Cents at TBN.TV mailbox. That's where they've come from. Keith, stick your hand in there and see what you got.
Okay. Marion from Rockingham, North Carolina. You know where that is, don't you? Hey, Governor.
No, it's in North Carolina.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's where all the big races take place. Hey, Governor, what I would like to ask is, what in the world can Pelosi be thinking of bringing another impeachment inquiry with the other three have failed? Who will fund this inquiry? When will the American people be tired of this bull happening again?
Well, you know, you ask about why Nancy Pelosi is doing this yet again. What on earth is she thinking? I don't know what she's thinking. I'm not sure she's been thinking for quite some time. The first impeachment was a disaster. If she goes after it again, it's only going to make the president look better, more electable, and make her party look utterly petty and ridiculous. So let's hope she does it.
Well, Andrew in Orlando, why is everyone so up in arms about mail-in balloting for voting? Isn't that what absentee ballots are? We've been allowing our military citizens abroad and those who cannot get to the polls to vote this way for years, and no one's cried foul. Why now?
Well, it's not so much just absentee balloting and military or typical ways that we've had mail-in. It's that if everyone does a mail-in, there's a very difficult way of monitoring whether or not the ballots are actually getting to the registered voter and whether the registered voter is the one who's mailing them back in. For example, each state has its own rules and regulations about it. In California, they come out and anybody can pick up those ballots. And there's something called ballot harvesting. What that means is people go and they say, hey, I'll get your ballot taken care of for you. Ballot harvesting is where people go and make sure that they pick up the voted ballots for the people who are going to vote like they want them to. Now, the reason I know this can lead to voter fraud is because my own mother, that's right, my own mother, she's been gone 20 years, but when she was in the last couple of years in the nursing home, an election in which I was on the ballot. My own mother was handed an absentee ballot by a nurse in the nursing home, and the nurse filled it out for her. My sister came in later that day and says, "Mother, let's work on your ballot." She says, "Oh, honey, you don't have to. That nice nurse did that for me." I'm not sure if my own mother voted for me because she never actually did it. That's what we're trying to avoid. So there's got to be a way to make sure that the registered voter is the one who actually does the voting and sends it in. What else we got, Keith?
Well, Olin in Argyle, Oklahoma, he says, "It's my understanding that the Constitution tells what the government can do, and the Bill of Rights tells what the government cannot do. Ergo, our Bill of Rights are being violated. Please correct me if I'm wrong."
You're not wrong. You're exactly on point. And I think it's important to note the Bill of Rights is a part of the Constitution, but I've always reminded people, read the Bill of Rights, read them real closely. Those first 10 amendments to the Constitution, not one of them, not one, gives the government power. Every single one of them limits the power of government, and every one of the Bill of Rights empowers the citizen, not the government. And every single one of them tells the government what it cannot do. I suggest every American go back and read them. The government is doing some things right now that the Constitution says it can't do. It's doing it anyway. You say, how do they get away with it? Because enough of us aren't screaming and saying no. That's how. Good point. Thanks for getting a good observation on that one. Okay, Keith, who's next?
Well, Douglas in Claremont, Florida, at 62 years old after paying taxes for years, "I am not the kind of person you described on Fox News that has a job of going to the mailbox. I've never in my life received unemployment, food stamps, etc. Not one dime. Recently, I was furloughed from my job, and I hope only time in my life I am temporarily on unemployment. Can't wait for my job to open up again. I'll be there bright and early. I feel bad enough being on unemployment and don't appreciate your negative comments."
Well, unfortunately, I hope your job doesn't involve listening carefully, because you didn't listen carefully. I did not disparage people like you who can't wait to go to work. Go back, Google the segment, watch it again, and here's what I said. Many people are furloughed and they're unemployed because the government shut them down, and they should be getting unemployment benefits. But there are people who are making more money on unemployment than they were making at their job based on a faulty way in which Congress wrote the bailout bill. Now what we have is some employers are calling their employees back to work, and the employees are saying, "You know, I don't want to come back just yet. I'm getting more money not coming and not working than I would be if I came back to work." And my point was that if your job reopens and you refuse to go, the unemployment benefits should end. That's not you. You're ready to go to work. You're exactly the good, responsible citizen that makes America great, because you know that we can't live for the rest of our lives on government handouts. We have to live on work. But sometimes, if the government closed your job down, yes, you should get unemployment. After all, you have paid for unemployment all your working life. So go back and watch my segment again. I don't think you're going to be mad at me at all. I think you'll like me and like what I said. What's next, Keith?
Well, Rosalind on Gmail. "You know, this virus thing was done so backwards. I've never seen anything like it in my 71 years. We should have protected the elderly and the weak and allowed the strong and healthy move on and take care of business."
Interesting you say that. I saw a video from a medical doctor, and he pointed out something that struck me as profound, and I thought, why didn't I think of that before? Maybe because I'm not a doctor. But he said in the history of pandemics, and there have been many, for centuries we've had pandemics before, he said this is the first time that we have quarantined the healthy people instead of the sick people. And I thought, that is indeed profound and correct. I think we're going to look back on this chapter and think maybe we didn't do it exactly right. We listened to a lot of people who wanted to shut things down, and I don't think that will happen again. We thank you all for sending in your questions, and you can send yours to my2cents@tbn.tv. Now from the Twitterverse, where you can follow me at GovMikeHuckabee, this very funny clip from @Adley on Instagram that takes a poke at America's elected officials and medical advisors during these coronavirus days. Take a look.
Yeah, I really don't understand why everybody is following the same rules right now. They're very clear, so let's take a minute and let's go over them again. First, you must not leave the house for any reason, unless of course you have a reason, and then you may leave the house. All stores are closed except those that are open, and all stores must close unless, of course, they need to stay open. This virus is deadly, but don't be afraid of it. It can only kill people who are vulnerable and also those who are not vulnerable. We should stay locked down until the virus stops infecting people. And it will only stop infecting people if enough of us get infected that we build immunity. So it is very important that we get infected and also do not get infected.
This is about one of the funniest things I have seen about the government advice regarding the Wuhan virus. Well, I got to admit, that's clearer than the daily press briefings I've watched for the most part. Finally, a shout out to my friend country artist Colin Ray, who's trying to get life back to normal by performing at one of the first outdoor concerts to be reopened. May the 30th, Kaysville, Utah at Barnes Park. Now, the event is headed up by the Utah Business Revival, and Colin has said he hopes this concert will inspire similar events in other states all over the country as we try not only to unify, but start pushing back against the effects of the pandemic. The event will give non-essential businesses a chance to interact with the public again. So I say, Colin, all the best to you and the good folks at the Utah Business Revival. As we close, here's a final word that helps define literature versus the press. Oscar Wilde put it this way. He said, the difference between literature and journalism is that journalism is unreadable and literature is not read. Well, until we get together next time, these have been the facts of the matter. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, then subscribe, and hit the notification bell below. Now, if you didn't like it, you ought to find a Ben Shapiro video to detox you with more facts.